Good morning. Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Joel Ibanez, and I am your worship associate today. I am joined today by our guest speaker, Lawrence Ingalls, Jacob Swetland, our Director of Music Ministries, and Danielle Lewis, who is our Director of Religious Education for Children and Youth, is not here today, but will be here next week. I'd also like to introduce our new audio-video tech staff member, Caden Ortiz. Caden has sung with the Orange Coast College Chamber Singers, plays bass guitar in a band, and has extensive audio engineering experience. So we do all welcome you all this morning. Whether you've been here 30 years or 3 or 10 months or 10 minutes, or whether you've strolled and rolled, or Zoomed, ran, or danced in, we're glad to have you join us. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you're seeking a spiritual home, we do hope that you will find it here. We are a community of many different beliefs. We are bound together not by dogmas or creeds, but rather a covenant to create a welcoming and loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. In the spirit of building this community, let's recognize the many volunteers who have helped us put this service together today. Thank you. Thank you. For our roomers, we do invite you to silence your cell phones. And Zoomers, we invite you to say hello in the chat. As we worship today, let us acknowledge that our church property rests on the sacred ancestral homelands of Ahachiman and Tongva peoples who seek justice and responsible stewardship.
Okay, I turned airplane mode on.
That sounds good. I like it. We do begin our worship with the lighting of the chalice. I believe she will. Does she? Does she already pass by that? Yes, our home minister, Reverend Sean Wilshire, is not here with us today, but she does have a special message for you.
Hello, roomers and Zoomers. So I'm away this week, but my spirit is with you. For those of you who are new to the church, maybe you're just checking us out or curious about Unitarian Universalism, welcome. Glad you're here. You are in for a treat. This is a wonderful, friendly, fabulous, just all-around spectacular community. I hope you can get to know them because it can be kind of tough to get to know a new community. But here's the thing, just hang in there, join in one of the activities, and before long, you'll get to know people, and then this becomes your church. Well, today we've planned a wonderful service for you, just blending music and word to bring together a helpful and hope-filled message. We hope it will feed your soul. So without further ado, let's go.
Okay. We begin our worship with the lighting of our chalice. This morning, I'd like to invite Corey. We have Corey here. Corey Brown is a lifelong UU member and has been coming to this particular congregation since 1991. Oh, well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? We will go ahead and do that. What do you know? There you go. So as he goes ahead and lights the chalice, let's say together our unison affirmation together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. This we affirm together. And please join us in singing our opening song.
Please rise and embody your spirit. Each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are keepers of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandmother's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Herbert Spencer once said, "The wise person must remember that while they are a descendant of the past, they are a parent of the future." Let's step into our future today by striving to respect others' values and beliefs as we do our own. So let it be.
Ton ombre, tu ne saurais tracer sombre, tu ne peux trop cacher mon malheureux amour. Bois épais, redouble ton ombre. Tu ne saurais tracer sombre, tu ne peux trop cacher mon malheureux amour. J'ai envie de ce poids douloureux est extrême. Je ne dois plus voir ce que j'aime. Je ne veux plus souffrir les jours. Je sens un désespoir douloureux et extrême. Je ne dois plus voir ce que j'aime. Je ne veux plus souffrir les jours.
And now is a time for all ages to reach out to the true child in all of us. Judy Tomlinson will be lighting the children's chalice after we hear the story.
A Friend for Henry by Jen Bailey. Illustrated by Mika Song. In classroom 6, second left down the hall, Henry was looking for a friend. It couldn't be Gilly, who circled her fishbowl. She's quiet, thought Henry, but she can't play on the swings. It couldn't be Miss Magoon, who knew about hugs. She shares, thought Henry, but she has to. Could it be someone else in classroom 6? In art class, Vivian shared Henry's double easel. Vivian was a kaleidoscope, a tangle of colors. She had ribbons and clackety shoes. She knew every pony song. Her fingernails were painted like rainbows. When I get paint on my fingers, Henry said, I wash it off. Vivian waved her hands too close to Henry's face. My mommy painted them. Aren't they pretty? Painting on people is against the rules, said Henry. Did your mommy get in trouble? No. Henry lowered his voice. Did you get angry? Why should I? But Vivian was very angry later. He ruined them. She likes rainbows, Henry explained, and he thought a friend would say thank you. Reading time was Henry's favorite. My friend will like it too. It was Henry's turn to put out the carpet squares. He tucked the blue ones next to the brown ones, green in the very middle. All the edges met, and the corners fit perfectly. Reading time, shouted Samuel, my favorite. Samuel was a thunderstorm, booming and crashing. He was kind of scary if you didn't have your blanket. He could pick up crayons with his toes and do proper somersaults. Henry stepped in front of Samuel. Somersaults are hard. Samuel dodged past. I want a green one. Wait, Henry's throat felt tight. They're perfect. Mine's a magic carpet from a genie's lamp, said Samuel. It's not. Henry's face was hot. It's from Rug World. There's the sticker. Up, up, and away, magic carpet. Booming and crashing, Henry's fingers curled closed. A friend listens. Henry, Miss Magoon knelt in front of him. Sit with me, please. Henry did, but he couldn't see the pictures, and his carpet square was brown. During snack time, Jaden took 3 crackers instead of 2. At recess, Riley dug up worms and let them use the swings. At free time, Henry's hope for a friend felt small. He watched the sunlight play along Gilly's scales. He could watch Gilly for a long time. Katie watched too. Katie smelled like strawberry milk. She read storybooks all by herself. She slid down the big slide, sometimes backwards. The big slide is too big, said Henry. Gilly floated past. She's shimmery, said Katie. But she doesn't blink, said Henry. What does she do? She burps pebbles, Henry thought, and breathes underwater and turns sunshine into colors. Henry hunched into his sweatshirt. Fish things. Katie bent to have a closer look. I like her. Henry tried not to blink. Want to play blocks? Sure. I don't like triangles, said Henry. I don't like broccoli, said Katie. Together, they built a tower. It had rectangles, cylinders, and squares, but no triangles or broccoli. It's perfect, said Henry. Thank you, said Katie. The next day, they played on the swings, and Katie went down the big slide. Henry waited at the bottom for his friend. The end.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold you in our love as you go.
And now we have a reading and meditation that will be read by Donna McCartney.
Good morning, everybody. Our reading today comes from Allocation, a site created by educators and experts on topics of education. The ability to learn from and relate respectfully to people of your own culture and other cultures is known as cultural responsivity. Being culturally responsive requires openness to the viewpoints, thoughts, and experiences of others. It's not about changing others to make them more like you, although we like to do that sometimes. Developing a culturally responsible attitude is a lifelong journey, and it includes developing cultural self-awareness. Ask yourself, what influenced my cultural identity? What values and beliefs do I hold, and why? Understanding your own cultural makeup is the first step to understanding that others hold different values and beliefs and believe in them as much as you believe in yours. Cultural responsivity also means learning to appreciate and value diverse views. We need not judge views that differ from ours as wrong. We need to accept that they are just different. We need to try to understand the other's point of view. Let's take a moment to meditate about these ideas. I'll ring this singing bowl to start the meditation and also to end it. If you want to join in, relax, take a deep breath, close your eyes, make sure your feet are on the floor. Let's ask ourselves, what values and beliefs do I hold? Were they handed down from my ancestors? How can I be more accepting of the different values and beliefs of others? Let's ponder these questions together.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts serves within, and we feel the power
I'm now thrilled to welcome our guest speaker, Lawrence Ingalls, who has been a finance manager at Caltech for 15 years, has an MBA from Pepperdine University, has been an in-person guest speaker or guest musician at 21 UU congregations in multiple states, and serves several spiritual churches online. Lawrence was raised in Los Angeles by a single mom. Was raised by a single mom and has with Mexican heritage. Is that correct? Yes. So please welcome Lawrence.
Can you hear me? Good. Good morning. My father's family, the Ingalls family, landed on this continent 6 years after the Mayflower, so just shy of 400 years ago, what many would call a good long time. My mother's family has been here for about 20,000 years, if anthropologists are to be believed about indigenous people. I am the descendant of both conquerors and the conquered. Culturally, I'm Latino. I never knew my father, and I grew up with my mother's Mexican family in Los Angeles. However, when I was 5 years old, my mom got involved with a religious group that mixed Hopi Native American and Far Eastern Indian beliefs and traditions. And after a few years of attending services regularly with this group, a bunch of us moved to a commune together in rural Arizona, located between a Navajo reservation and a Yavapai reservation. Cultural misappropriation is, among other things, the taking of intellectual property, traditional knowledge, cultural expressions, or artifacts from someone else's culture without permission. We were not doing that in this commune because we did have permission from and a relationship with the Hopi. So this is a picture of the Escalante Canyon in Utah. It eventually joins up with the Grand Canyon. Journeying on a 3-week-long backpacking hike, sleeping out in the open next to the river every night in this canyon near Hopi lands. For the first time in my life, I looked up and I saw a massive blanket of stars that I had never seen before. We were hundreds of miles from any city lights, so there was no glare at all to affect our view of the stars, and it was stunning. While we were hiking through this canyon, we all took new names in an evening ceremony out there in the wilderness by the light of a large bonfire. Within that group and in that commune, from the ages of 9 to 14, I went exclusively by the name Navachi, affectionately shortened to Navach. Now for context, there we go. So this is me during my undergrad volleyball days. Because of my genetics, I get very dark if I spend any amount of time in the sun. This ought to tell you how much time I spend in an office. My point being that I do own mirrors. I do know I'm usually pale enough to pass for white. So I want you to picture a dark-skinned, shirtless little Navachi with shoulder-length hair running around the Arizona desert, shouting at his mother in Spanish about each new and exciting discovery, and subsisting on a diet of Navajo fry bread, tamales and beans, and cheeseburgers. That was my childhood. It was not a typical American upbringing. It's not that unusual to be both Latino and Native American, and in fact, I was pleasantly surprised to discover through a genetic test that my mom was fully 1/3 Native American. We didn't know that until after she died. Ancestry.com can narrow down your indigenous genetics to a specific geography. Mine, it turns out, are Arizona and Mexico. And being Arizona, that means that they were most likely either Hopi or Navajo or Apache or Zuni. The Hopi tribe was so influential in my upbringing that Hopi values continue to inform my beliefs and decision-making to this day. So it's really great having an actual genetic connection to the Pueblo tribes, even though we don't know specifically which one we are. I self-identify as Native American and Latino because it's both genetically correct, but also because I grew up so influenced by the Hopi. It's aggravating to me and others of indigenous descent when we hear people talking about, complaining about immigrants and borders and who should be here and who should not be here. I also find it a little triggering when I hear North Americans discussing conflicts or outright wars in other countries, and they talk about how one group of people should basically get off the land of another group of people. I just can't imagine any one of those North Americans signing over their own homes, or where they gather for worship, or where they own businesses, and giving that back to Native Americans. I don't see that that scenario is ever going to play out. In many conflicts, who is wrong is determined by the date you start looking at behavior. I'm not going to get into the specifics of North American history or current world politics, but this is what I know. All claims to land are temporary. Even if your people have been on land for 20,000 years, like my family has been here for 20,000 years in what is currently called California and Arizona, that before that was called the Western Territories of the United States, before that it was called Mexico, before that it was called New Spain, and before that it was just called home by my family for 20,000 years. All claims to land are ultimately temporary. Here's the thing that millions of people all over the world do not want to hear. If your children's children, 30 generations from now, that's about 900, 1,000 years, if they still speak your language and still practice your religion and still hold your same culture, they will not have done so in peace or safety. The bitter pill, if you must characterize it negatively, the bitter pill of living in peace, where your family's children can prosper for generations, is being a genetic and cultural mishmash of, for example, Navajo, Scottish, and Mexican. My family has prospered for generations now, no longer being purely any one thing. My pagan Scottish ancestors 100 generations ago never dreamed that their descendants 50 generations later would turn their backs on the old ways, would become something called Catholic, and would speak English instead of Gaelic. Those Catholic Scottish ancestors of mine 50 generations ago never dreamed that I would speak Spanish and hold Hopi Native American spiritual beliefs and practices that are much more aligned with their own ancestors' beliefs and practices than anything that looks like Catholicism. The very human, very powerful desire to hold in your family the same language, the same religion, the same culture, forever, for all of eternity, is not workable. Living in peace means both changing yourself and also changing your descendants. Today, if you are white and you speak English and you belong to a biblical religion, and you truly, in your heart, you want your children's children 30 generations from now to live in peace and safety, it is entirely possible that those descendants may look like African Buddhists who speak Korean. Nobody knows what 900 years from now is going to look like. But I'm certain that if 30 generations from now, your children's children still look like you, still speak your language, still hold your same religion, that does not happen in peace. That happens by rigidly holding to certain ideas, no matter what the circumstances. My mom's mom was the oldest of 7 or 8 children, so I have a ton of great aunts and uncles, regular aunts and uncles, and first, second, and third cousins. But I'm the only one in my generation or later who still speaks Spanish. A few years before my grandma died, I observed out loud that when my mom and her sisters die, I'll be the very last native Spanish speaker in my entire family. When I was born, a majority of the family was Spanish speaking. My grandmother shook her head and very quietly, almost just to herself, she said, "Pues, supongo que estamos siendo borrados." Which means, well, I guess we're just being erased. My grandmother was a fiery, powerful woman, and seeing her look so defeated really made an impression on me. I'm certain that there are millions of people all over the world who feel similarly that if their children's children, however many generations later, don't look like them, don't speak their language or hold their same culture, that they feel they're being erased. So maybe I'm a little bit reluctant to put a cheery spin on my own multiracial, multicultural identity. On the other hand, I do exist. I'm the living embodiment of what scientists call heterosis, or hybrid vigor, or outbreeding enhancement. Basically, that means my genetic diversity makes me generally healthier and better able to fight disease than a purebred. And while I do, sometimes I feel the absence of a centuries-long connection with both my Native American and Scottish ancestors. It's my choice whether I choose to focus on that lack or instead to focus on the richness that is my genetic and cultural diversity, and I choose the richness. It's fascinating to me how I've seen ancestors deep in the past call out to the current generation. My mother, who believed herself to be a Los Angeles Latina, was powerfully drawn to Native American art and culture. having no idea that she herself was 1/3 Native American. The Hopi connection of that commune in Arizona was a huge part of the reason for moving there and joining them. Because of the Hopi influence on my upbringing, it has always been normal for me to talk out loud to my ancestors, which now includes all of my parents and my grandparents. As soon as I got the email showing that my Native American ancestors were specifically located in Arizona, I knew from my childhood there that that meant either Hopi, Navajo, Apache, or Zuni. So I was saying out loud to my parents and my grandparents and all of my ancestors, I really want to figure this out, you guys. So the very next morning, I'm still thinking about that. I'm driving through rural Texas visiting my in-laws. It's 6:30 in the morning, and I'm driving down this highway, and the light turns red for no reason. So I stop, and I'm really annoyed, and I'm looking around, and there's nothing for miles, and I'm stopped at this red light. And then I looked up through the windshield. I took this picture through the windshield. So I'm stopped there at Navajo Road, and I literally laughed out loud and said out loud to my parents and my grandparents, "Good one." According to Google, there are 16 million intersections in the United States, but this is the one I got stopped at 6:30 in the morning, out in the middle of nowhere, purely by coincidence. I've always spoken pretty freely about these kinds of experiences because they happen to me a lot. And I was well into my 20s before I realized that the average white person was humoring me, or believed that I engaged in magical thinking, or maybe that I had mental health issues. When I've been asked, "You don't really believe in spirits and that kind of thing, right? I mean, you work at Caltech, you have a master's degree." My standard response is, I actually do. Either that or my being stopped at that intersection was a 1 in 16 million coincidence piled on top of numerous other such coincidences. That kind of thing really does happen to me all the time. Here's the thing. I'm not white. I'm very pale. But even at that, my experience raised by a single Latina mom in a Mexican family automatically gives me a very different perspective than the average you. Then you throw in the whole commune connected to the Hopi tribe thing, and I think many of you would be surprised at what I believe because of what I've experienced. My older brothers are much older than I am, and they grew up near San Francisco with my father's family. And they grew up in a time when children still regularly played cowboys and Indians. One of my brothers was always staunchly an Indian. He's by far the darkest complected of all of us. And when we moved to Arizona, he was already a young adult. And we all noticed how much he looked like the Navajo guys who regularly came into town. Because we didn't yet know about our own Native American genetics, we thought the Navajo guys looked surprisingly Mexican. That's how we made sense of that in our own minds. Of these two photos, the one on the left is where we lived in Arizona. The commune was just a few hundred yards from Willow Lake. And on the right is the Escalante Canyon again in Utah, where we would journey to be near Hopi lands, where the first time that we were there, I took the name Navachi. The Hopi Reservation and the Escalante Canyon are each near the borders of what is currently called Arizona and Utah. Previous to this, I grew up just south of Pasadena, just east of East LA. It was very urban. And I was perfectly at home out there in the wilderness from the ages of 9 to 14. Just under the smaller arch you see on the left, that smaller arch is several stories high. The picture really doesn't do it justice. That's where, for the first time in my life, I ran around completely naked outside during what was supposed to be bath time, but what ended up being the first of many nudist romps up and down that riverbank. It took us 3 weeks to hike through that canyon. I was only 9 years old the first time, and I was pretty much covered in mud by the end of every single day. And let me tell you, in my teens, I cried and I raged against returning to Los Angeles when my mother announced we were moving back. I adjusted quickly, but I remember our very first day back in the Pasadena area. I looked at the asphalt streets and the concrete sidewalks and the brick buildings, and I thought, everything here is dead. As the descendant of both conquerors and the conquered, it's impossible for me to impartially judge my very existence. I'm openly biased in favor of my own life. At the same time, I'm certain that I have ancestors who would have wished I were still purely Native American or still purely Scottish, perhaps especially those more recent ancestors who may have slaughtered each other on this continent. I have 2 parents, double that, and I have 4 grandparents, double that, and I have 8 great-grandparents, right? If I keep doubling it that way, Just 20 generations back, I have more than 1 million ancestors. 30 generations back, and it's over 1 billion. And that's just the last 1,000 years, and only includes my direct ancestors and none of their siblings or their other children. They're all dead, and every single one of them continues through me. Our languages have changed, our lands have changed, our customs have changed. I live in a world where it's no big deal that people have walked on the moon, where children can watch live video feeds, not from all the way across the country, but from the planet Mars. I am the leading edge of everything my ancestors could have created. And as the youngest of 3 brothers on my mom's side, and none of us has any children, I'm also where we all come to an end. I'm the final culmination of all of us. And that is as it should be, because nothing physical continues in the same form for all of eternity. Ever increasingly, it seems to me, we are expected in all situations to pick a side, throwing details and nuance to the winds in favor of sound bites and memes. Instead of simplifying conflicts by demanding people pick sides, what if, instead, there was an emphasis on teaching people how to have complex conversations? Instead of characterizing calls for peace as the calls for the destruction of one group or another, what we should all be doing is rallying for peace and safety, full stop. Calling for peace and safety for all is not a radical idea. But I keep seeing this enforced divide play out again and again in everything from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to school shootings. The ridiculous truth of just 30 generations equaling 1 billion people is that if we don't already share ancestors with the people we hate, we're almost certainly going to share descendants. Our children's children and their children's children will literally be the same people. And we owe it to those people to learn this skill of complex conversations. Most of my friends and my acquaintances they run from liberal to very liberal, but most of my relatives are not. My husband and I are both the liberal nut jobs in each of our respective conservative families. So we don't have the luxury of existing in a liberal bubble. You don't know how I envy those of you who grew up in liberal families and then you turned around and married into liberal families. What is that like? It is agonizing to grow up loving an older relative who you realize in your adult life is and always has been a racist or misogynist or homophobic. You don't just stop loving them. That's not how it works. It's really painful. I'm still learning this complex conversation skill. It's so much easier to torture people with my words, especially when they've offended me or hurt my feelings. But that doesn't really move anything forward. It's gratifying in the moment, but my commitment for 2024 so far has been delayed gratification and greater engagement with people who I find challenging. I know from my own conservative loved ones that some people can't hold conflicting ideas as equal. They can't sit with ambiguity. I used to dismiss them as just not wanting to, or worse, thinking that they really knew what was true and willfully choosing to be ignorant. I've come to believe that it's not willful ignorance, it's lack of ability, and certainty is comforting. Life is ambiguous and uncertain for a lot of people, maybe for most people. And in my opinion, people all over the world, not just in this country, are attracted to very rigid, black and white view of the world, churches and politicians, because of the distinct lack of ambiguity that they offer. This is right, period. That is wrong, period. Certainty is comforting. And liberal communities, certainly UU communities, aren't just comfortable with ambiguity, it's often what we offer in sermons and promote as a general mindset. Of my most recent ancestors, my parents and my grandparents, 3 of those 6 people could not have learned the skill of complex conversations. But I believe that I can, eventually. I believe when you and others are thrown together in a terrible situation, and you're the one with greater physical strength, or more money, or more youth, or more time, or more brains, it's on you to improve that situation for yourself and the others that you're thrown in with. And being punitive in a terrible situation when you're the one who's stronger, richer, healthier, smarter, that's just being a jerk. It's on you. It's on me. it is on all liberal communities. I truly believe that the people most likely to be able to learn this skill of complex conversations are liberals. And that is, and always has been, proudly us. Thank you for listening to me this morning.
Please rise, embody your spirit, and let's sing our returning song, Blue Boat Home. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing half of the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, we are sharing with Stand Up for Kids, Orange County, an organization that assists local communities in being able to house youths and educate the youth of today and keep them away from homelessness. There are multiple ways in which you can support the church and this organization. You can mail a check, go through our website, or use an app called Vanco Mobile. If you're a roomer, you can also simply use the basket as it's passed. The choice is yours. All the information is on our website should you need it. As always, thank you for your generosity.
Love
in singing We Gather Together, a song that puts our intentions into words and expresses our gratitudes for the many gifts that we share. We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
Now is a time when we honor the important events in our lives. You're invited, one and all, whether you're a member, a friend, or a visitor, to participate in our weekly ritual of joys and sorrows. So, let's take a deep breath. Perhaps you come here today holding something close to your heart, moments from the last days or hours that have struck you at your core. If you'd like to honor such a profound joy or sorrow, you're invited to do so. If you're a roomer, you're invited to come forward and light your candle here. If you would like to share your joy or sorrow, you can also write it on the slip of paper provided and hand it to me. If you're a Zoomer, you're invited to write your joy or sorrow in the chat. Once the roomers are done lighting candles, I'll read the joys and sorrows shared out loud, as Leanne Sands will be able to light a candle for the Zoomers. As music is played, I'll invite to silently offer healing of celebration as you feel called and according to your own beliefs. Okay. We do have a few joys and sorrows here. Craig P. has lit a candle of hope for the love to soothe the pain of hyperpolarization, politically and otherwise. Kristen M. would like to light a candle of joy. Happy birthday to my mom, Kathy, who is turning 85 tomorrow and is healthy as a horse. And Amelia N. would like to light a candle of hope for Jerry Simon, a good friend of many years who is suffering from advanced Parkinson's disease and a serious infection. In addition, we do have Sarah J., who would like to light a candle of joy. She was excited to step into a role this weekend that she had not enjoyed for many, many years, being the tooth fairy as her granddaughter, Jordan, lost her first tooth. Yay to her. Let us hold in love all the joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, both spoken and silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect. Let all these moments remind us that we are not alone. Okay, and with that, please, thank you for joining us this morning. Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say together, we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you're a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved community. If you'd like to know more about our church, we invite you either to stop by the welcome table in the courtyard outside, where we have some goodies and information, or contact us at hello@ocuuc.org, and we will help you get connected. Zoomers are welcome to stay after and chat with one another online, and we do want everyone to feel part of this beloved community. So please, reach out and we'll help you get connected. We do have some announcements today. As you can see, we do have the writing group, which is going to be meeting at noon in the Victoria Room and on Zoom. The UU Animal Ministry, which will be meeting today at 2:30 on Zoom. The Dream Group, which has been rescheduled to Sunday, July 28th at 12 p.m. in Suite 7. They will not be meeting today. And we do have a calling for all of you talented people out there. Music Under the Stars will be coming on Saturday, August 17th at a time yet to be determined. But this is a call to all performers out there. Please see Jacob, our Director of Music Ministries, after church to sign up. And of course, off to the right, we do have our routine groups and weekly meetings that meet during the week. If you're interested in any of these groups or topics that you'd like to go ahead and look into, go ahead and if you visit ocuuc.org for these links, you'll be able to find more on these. And then we do have another announcement, if I may, from our guest speaker, Lauren.
Just two quick announcements. I want you to know that last October, I was in a really bad car accident. I got a concussion, and I've struggled with names ever since, even with my family and coworkers. It's super weird. So if you say hello after the service, and I'm obviously checking out your name tag, that's why. It's weird. It's super weird. And then the other announcement is, even though I'm really struggling with names, I can still memorize scripts. So explain that. So I'm leaving here immediately to go be the lead in the Addams Family musical at Long Beach Playhouse. Thank you. It plays for 3 more weeks. Tickets are selling really fast. It's a cute show. It's really easy and fun and not that long. So I invite you to come to that Long Beach Playhouse. Thanks.
Kofi Annan, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, said, "We may have different religions, different languages, different colored skin, but we all belong to the human race. Let's honor our descendants and other descendants by respecting the values and beliefs of all members of our human race. Let it be so."
This service is over. Let our service continue.